Hi everybody, my name is Jens Larsen. I'm sure you're already practicing scales and arpeggios, but it can be kind of difficult to take these exercises and then really use them in your solos and make some real music with it. In this video, I'm going to go over 5 ways that you can work with your diatonic triads, and I'm focusing on making some exercises that can work better as building blocks in your solo line, so it's easier to make music with them. And for each of the exercises, I'm going to go over how to play the exercises, possibly in a few ways, and I'm also going to show you how it sounds if you're using it in a real line. To me, finding exercises that are a little bit easier to use as melodic building blocks and sound a little bit more musical really help with making stronger melodies, using the technique that you're practicing, having a good overview of the arpeggios on the fretboard, and of course knowing the scale and the music theory a lot better. And as a small extra feature, these exercises and also the licks that I'm making with the patterns are really good examples of where I'm using economy or sweep picking in my playing. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar, improve the way that you solo, check out some interesting arpeggios or chord voicings, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to make sure not to miss anything, then click the little bell notification icon next to the subscribe button. Probably what's great about this exercise is that it's really emphasizing the top note. So if I take my F major root position here, I'm starting with the C, skipping down to the root, and then just playing the ascending arpeggio. So I have 4 notes, and that means this 4-note pattern is really easy to insert into a line, because it just fits as half a bar. And it's also the large interval skip, and then the fact that I'm following that up with an ascending pattern like this really gives the line and the exercise a lot of forward motion, which is a really nice thing to have if you're playing more sort of bop-oriented lines. The way that I find triads that I can use over a chord is really just to look at the chord and then look at the extensions that are in there. So in this video, most of the time I'm using the different triads on the D minor chord in a 2-5-1, the key of C major. So if I build a D minor 11 chord just to have a few notes and some extensions, then I have this, so D, F, A, C, E. And for each set of 3 notes within this, I have a triad. So I have a D minor, F major, A minor, and a C major. So all those triads will work. Of course, the higher I go, the more I lose a connection to the basic chord. So that may be something you need to be aware of. If you're only going to play C major, then it doesn't really sound like a D minor chord anymore. And you might want to use some of the more basic chord tones as well. But that's the way that you look for the triads that are going to fit any chord. In this first lick, I'm starting with an F major Coltrane pattern, so F, G, A, C. Then I'm using the exercise on an A minor triad, so I'm starting with the E, then going down and playing the A, C, and then back up to the E. In this example, and also in this exercise, you can tell I'm playing that all alternate picking. So here I'm not using any economy or sweeping. So this is just good for your alternate picking and skipping strings, and of course you want to be able to do that as well. Then on the G7 altered, I'm using the same pattern, first moving up to a B flat minor, so then down to an A flat minor. So really what's happening is I'm like shifting around this minor triad, first on the D minor and then on the G7 altered, and then resolving that to the 9th on C major, and tagging the line with a B and the E, so ending on the 3rd. This next exercise is really just a way of finding a lot of triads that will work over the chord. So essentially what I'm doing is that I'm taking the way that I found triads that will work well over a chord and associate them with a chord, and then turning that into a technical exercise. You probably still remember that I had first D minor, then F major, then A minor, and then finally a C major triad over my D minor chord. And really that's what I'm doing here. I'm just playing it descending, and I'm starting high with the C, and then A minor, and then F, and then the D minor. And the way I'm playing it in this case is first using, there are 2 ways. So the first one will be to play it with economy picking, so down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So that way of playing the triads, which works really well. Another solution is to use legato. So I'll play a downstroke on the first note, pull off to the next one, and then upstroke, next arpeggio, same idea. You need to move it around a little bit more for your left hand when you're working like this, but it's also, and it's a slightly different sound. In the end, I think your technical choices should also be mostly guided by what you think sounds good for the melody that you're playing. The technique that I'm using to execute this lick is the legato version. So first I'm playing an A minor triad, and then the F major, and then the D minor, and then using the same technique to play the first triad that I'm using on the G7 altered, which is a D flat major triad. So first we get, and because we have, I'm playing in 8 notes, and actually I'm playing 3 complete triads, so the D is actually on the on beat 1 on the G7. I'm just going across the bar line there, and then the D flat, and then moving up, and then just playing this sort of cliche A flat minor pattern to resolve to the 5th of C. A huge part of what sounds like jazz to a lot of people is the use of chromatic passing note and chromatic leading notes. And a good way to work on this, if you want to have that in your playing, is also just to already insert that on the level where you're practicing your scales. So in this case, I'm just playing the basic diatonic triads in this 8th fret position, and then I'm just adding a chromatic leading note to each of the roots. So the way that I'm playing this is really just straight alternate picking and just sticking with the basic shape here. And one thing that's maybe worth noticing is that if I have a note sort of in an outer position like this, then I'll just stretch out of that position and then slide it back in. I find that that's technically just the easiest way to do it. Of course, you may prefer to play, let's see, to put the leading note on the previous string like this. That's really up to you what works better. You should just choose whatever you find easier to play. The lick that I'm playing here is first using an F major triad and then an A minor triad. And really that fills up the entire bar because I'm just playing first the leading note and then the arpeggio. And then again, you can also tell I'm using the third distance because then that's easier. I have 2 triads that work really well over this chord. So F, and then with the leading note, the A minor triad. From here, I'm moving into the G7 also by playing the F and then this A flat minor major arpeggio, and then an E flat major triad, and then resolving to the E, which is the 3rd of C major. The reason that I can keep on publishing videos every week is that I have a community of people over on Patreon that are supporting the channel. I probably couldn't keep on publishing all these videos that are on some very specific jazz guitar and music theory topics without their support. If you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page. If you join us over on Patreon, I can also give you something in return for your support. This exercise is again focusing on the top note of the triad. So I'm playing through the scale and just moving the triads up diatonically. So it's going to be like D minor, E minor, F major, G, A minor, and so on. I'm playing on 2 strings, not on 3 strings this time. And I'm playing each triad descending. So I'm starting with the top note, the A, and then adding the 2 other ones. And that gives me sort of a natural emphasis of that top note, and the other 2 kind of sound like an accompaniment, and that's a nice effect to have in there. Another thing with this is that I'm using, again, economy picking. So I'm playing the first one with a downstroke, and then 2 upstrokes, down 2 upstrokes, down 2 upstrokes. Of course a bit stretchy down here, but I think you'll get used to it, and otherwise to just start higher and move up higher on the neck. It's not really that important. Another thing that's good about this is also that, of course you want to practice your triads within positions, your diatonic triads, but you also want to really explore different ways of playing them on different string sets. So of course you want to do the 1 note per string, but also the triads on 2 strings is really a useful thing to have in your system and having your playing, to have an overview of that. The line that I'm playing is starting on the D minor triad and then just moving up, really similar to the exercise, so E minor and then up to the F major. So the F major is just coming out on the F here on the 1 on G7, and then from here I'm going to the G, sliding up to the A flat, and then down, which is essentially, to me, an F half diminished arpeggio in inversion, and then down the scale, resolving to the G on C major. This exercise is really just a way of shuffling up the notes of the triads and working with the diatonic triads. So I'm just playing each triad from the third, moving up to the fifth, and then down to the root. And really what I'm working with here is just that, of course, we have those three notes, but just because they're a triad doesn't mean you have to play them in the same order all the time. It makes a lot of sense to just see if you can figure out the different melodies you actually have with these three notes. Also because the triad is just a really strong melody, and it doesn't in that way really matter too much in what order you're playing the notes. So I like this one because it also really emphasizes sort of the strong sounding note in each triad is on the third. So we really have that emphasized in the beginning of the melody. And then the 3, 5, 1 is a good way of doing this. And in this case, I'm just playing that in the position. So, and that's an easy thing to move through. Once you just have a good overview of the different triads, it's not too difficult to move this through a scale position like I'm doing here. And that's really worthwhile checking out also just because it's opening up for a lot of new melodies with a note material that you already have in your fingers and in your ears. This lick is placing the triads a little bit differently, and this way of placing them is actually making it possible for me to use economy picking in this pattern as well, because I'm playing this pattern first, and that means I can play down, up, up, and then on the next string I'm stretching out to catch the C. So first I have this F major, and then I'm playing an A minor triad in the same way, so down, up, up. So that's also just an extra way of working with this, where you're using kind of the thirds distance and combining this melody with that exercise to create an easy way of playing it using economy picking. And then from there I'm just going down to the C again, up the scale, up to the E flat, which is then the flat 13 on the G7 altered. And then this line is sort of based around an A flat minor major arpeggio. So skipping up to the high E flat and then resolving that to the 9th of C major, the D. If you want to develop your ability to move between positions and really open up the fretboard a bit, then you should check out this video where I'm going over some different exercises that are more along the neck and more working on connecting the different positions. If it's the first time you see one of my videos and you want to learn more about jazz guitar, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page. That's about it for this week. Thank you for watching, and until next week.